welcome to the Legislative Report. I'm John Banville. Our guest this week is Senator Joe Robach. Senator Robach, I want to thank you very much for making time with us.
John, great to be here and have this opportunity to talk a little bit about what's going on, what direction we're going to try and go into here and let people know what's going on.
I want to start off by talking about the recent elections that basically called the status quo out, which had been raising taxes and increasing fees, and basically creating an environment in New York State that was not business friendly, it was not taxpayer friendly. What is your general view of what happened recently during the state elections?
Yeah, certainly. There's no question that I want to thank everyone who voted in general, the people that ran for office. That's an important part of democracy. And really thank everybody who supported me, and glad to have this opportunity to be back, because I think this is an important time in New York. And on somewhat of a lighter note, the day before the election, I have go to the YMCA very early in the morning. We call it the 5:30 a.m. group. And we were in there and people were talking about how frustrated they were with a lot of the political commercials, the negative ads and everything else, and how happy they would be when the election was over. I said to them, I'll be very happy when the election's over. Also, it meant every bit of this. But now that that's behind us, you're right to point out what the important thing is that everybody in elected office, I hope, takes away from this what constituents want them to do. And I do think, unlike other years where perhaps the direction may not have been as clear, this year, from national elections, our federal representatives, on down to the state level, you do not have to be a detective to figure out people, even incumbents, that voted for budgets 3 and 4 times the rate of inflation, or were moving toward and really advocating for even more government spending, seem to pay the price at the polls. So first and foremost, I think I already had some idea of that prior to the election, but I think this time it really materialized, where people sent a message with their vote. And at the state level of government I'm at, those are the people, both in the Assembly and the Senate, that seem to lose their elections, where again, those that voted for those huge budgets and didn't have any plan. So not only did the public say that, it was interesting to me that most of the people that won, even at the highest level in the governor's race, they were all saying they're supporting, reining in spending, something that I was happy that we passed in the Senate, the property tax cap, something very, very important to us. The only person I've ever really seen come out against it very vocally is the Speaker of the Assembly, Sheldon Silver, who had stated he was not only against it, but felt his members were against it. I don't think that's true. And I know Mayor Duffy, who was a Rochester mayor prior to being the lieutenant governor-elect, and Attorney General Cuomo, now going to be Governor Cuomo, very much have said repeatedly on the campaign trail, in Rochester, in commercials, that they're very much for reining in spending and property tax cap as well. So I'm hoping that this loud voice of the public, especially in upstate New York, that message has been delivered, and I'm hoping that everyone, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, are going to act now on that will of the people. And I could say this, many of them also have indicated they would do that prior to election. I think it's very, very important that we move together and move forward. I can only speak where I live, and even as a citizen, not as an elected official. The last 2-year budgets, I thought, heaped on us by our New York City leaders, controlling everything, delivered on party line vote, not only spent way too much money did not treat upstate New York fairly on reimbursements, how things were cut, and that did not go over well. And people are paying more attention to government, and I'm glad they are, than ever before. So I hope not naively, but I'm hopefully optimistic that the mix in Albany now will be a little bit more balanced. There's been more people elected that at least have said prior to the election they really want to move in a different direction, and that they're listening to people on controlling spending, trying to be more efficient in government, and also property tax cap. I'm really am going to do whatever I can to make sure those things come to fruition.
Do you feel that the events of this recent November of the election, do you feel that this is an opportunity for New York State to try to basically change its philosophy of government and how it deals with people?
Well, I have to say this because I don't want to paint an inaccurate picture. New York, it's not good or bad. We offer a lot of services, some that are unique and very good. Access to higher education, how we fund K through 12 education, and what we invest in kids, the highest in the nation. How we take care of people with developmental disabilities, both in housing, day treatment, work experience. Very, very different than a lot of other states. How we take care of elderly, almost instantaneously going to the nicest nursing homes, some of them over $100,000 a year, very well taken care of. What I look at it now is, can we afford to do all those things? Have we wrung out every efficiency we can? Have we made government as lean as mean? Because we know, I don't think people are saying that services are bad. I think they're saying, I don't know if my business, my family, me on a fixed income can any longer afford to pay for those, and that's why we can't continue to raise taxes like we did these last 2 years. And I don't believe it. Even when I hear my colleagues, a lot of times my Democratic colleagues from Manhattan will get up and say, and people where I live want us to raise taxes. I don't believe that. And if they're doing it there, I haven't seen it on television, but I know that's not what people are saying where I live. I have my own volition, have withheld 10% of my own operations of my office to try and really lead by example, or, as the saying goes, not just talk the talk, walk the walk. I think that's the mentality. We don't have to slash and burn. Let's fairly get rid of what we can. Let's all tighten our belts in government first, the elected side, and then look at what would be that fair amount to go through and perhaps cut. Maybe it'll be a 1% cut across the board. Maybe it'll be 2%. I also don't think it's fair to cut libraries or OMRDD, people with developmental disabilities, more than other things, or reduce reimbursement for nursing homes in upstate New York, but not New York City. I think we have to stay away from those things. I think perhaps we can save a lot of money too, merging a lot of authorities, maybe liquor authority with economic development, the Thruway Authority with the Department of Transportation. Things along that nature would make us more competitive, perhaps not have to cut vital services, but get leaner and meaner and better. And I really do think that we have to send a loud, clear message to people all across New York, but especially in Rochester and Monroe County and upstate New York, that not only do we hear you, but we're responding to your requests. Not easy. It'll be challenging, but it's what we have to do. It seems to me that can happen right now. We're a little bit uncertain, but it looks like that we'll have more political balance, that there's a good chance that Republicans will have more of a say in the Senate. I think that makes it more conducive for controlling spending. And I do think the governor coming in certainly has made some very strong statements, and I hope he'll be able to work with the Assembly side and the people in his own party to deliver that well. But not just in upstate New York, in Long Island too, and people that supported that MTA tax and these huge budget taxes also seem to have their voters speak very loudly that they didn't care for that direction in government too. So it's going to be very, very important. But I think we're at a crossroads. If we don't, and I'll end with this, I'm more concerned with the people that are voting with their feet, that are looking to see us move in a different direction with more consideration to the property taxpayer and the taxpayer in general.
So basically your philosophy is where there's waste, where there's fraud, we can reduce expenditures without eliminating services, in many cases life-saving services.
Sure. I think it's all the above. Can I say universally there won't be some degree of reduction in services that people like, so to speak? Yes, but I do think out of a $137 billion budget, we can do a lot of consolidation. You mentioned the word fraud in a lot of services. I don't look at it as fraud. I look at it as making sure there's integrity in there. You know, Medicaid is $45 billion. And while we've made some efficiencies, which I give kudos to the legislature and Attorney General Cuomo for that, I think a lot more can be in there with safeguards. If you just save, you know, a simple 5%, that's $2 billion that we could give back to the taxpayers or not have to take or perhaps split and use for more vital services. Yes, absolutely. I've always felt that, but now more than ever, we have to look at all those things in a bipartisan fashion, in a government efficiency pattern, and really, really look at those things. Again, this is just tighten our belt a little bit, like businesses are doing, working families, and people on fixed incomes. Again, no one enjoys it, but it's what you need to do, and it's what a lot of people in my district are having to do across the board, and I know other people in the state are having to do the same thing. And I believe that government should lead, really lead by example. We can't tell other people, you have to sacrifice, but we're going to just keep, you know, the one-page playbook, you know, of doing that, and even making these bold statements that, you know, somehow trying to make the argument that, you know, in New York City in particular, that people really are actually asking for and think it's the right time for government to get bigger and take more money. I think that's wrong, illogical thinking.
Between now and January, you're going to have an opportunity to kind of reassess and decide what your priorities are going to be. With the understanding that there is some time before we enter into the new session, what do you see right now as your top priorities going into the 2011 legislative session?
Well, really three things. One, we already talked about. I think we have to move in a different direction and live up to much of the statements that were made before the election, and that goes from the gubernatorial office all the way down. And I think it's connected taxes, but we also have to come up with a policy, perhaps some revenue-neutral tax credits for new jobs created, small businesses, jumpstart. If there are going to be resources for economic development, we can't do what we did in last year's budget where all the money was sent to New York City for a movie and tax credit and only $50 million left for upstate New York. We have to have something to help jobs and the economy, critically important, and people said that during the election. And the last one, I believe, while it's a new concept to New York, the idea of initiative and referendum where things can be put directly on a ballot is something we ought to discuss and let the public know more about, because this way they can have a greater say. And if we don't get some of these things done that we pledged before the election, perhaps the people can do it directly by putting it on a ballot. I think those would be three really, really key elements.
Well, Senator Robach, I want to thank you again for taking time to talk to us, our viewers at home, and we'll see you soon.